Yeah, one of the great problems of descriptions of me is they tend to begin with former. So you get a list of, he was former, do-da. But I still am, and I always have been, passionate about legal aid. And if I look back over my career, which somewhat to my shock now is getting into its fifth decade, I have lobbied and participated in discussions about legal aid from different organisations throughout that time. In the 70s, it was what was then the Law Centres Working Group, now the Network. 80s and 90s, it was LAG, Legal Action Group. A rather unfortunate 3-year period over the millennium with the Law Society. Don't work for them. And then back to the paradise that is Justice for my last few years. And all of those organisations, certainly when I was there, well-informed, made up of practitioners who knew what was going on, capable of a great debate, and subject to one great disadvantage. They were made up of practitioners. They could be written off as the BMA is written off in relation to the health service. And one of the great things that I think openJustice has to offer in this field is a broader constituency than just practitioners. And it's an uneasy, let us admit within ourselves, it's an uneasy link, an obvious one, between practitioners and the funding of legal aid. And the broader the discussion about it, the more openJustice brings its constitutional hinterland and its members from the Open Democracy network, that we will benefit from that in terms defensively, and we will benefit looking forward. I mean, there is no point in mourning the legal aid. We have to be realistic. LASBO ended a period of the ascent of legal aid. Legal aid, I mean, the words of Bruce Springsteen, those jobs are going, boys, and they ain't coming back. And we can mourn and we can lament that, but there ain't going to be legal aid for civil matters in the way it was. We're going to have to work around. And what are we going to have to do? What's the response? We're going to have to pull together. We're going to have to make real the access to justice language, which was developed by people on the left in the 1970s as a way of saying lawyers are not enough, you've got to pull together court procedures, you've got to pull together the NGO sector, you've got to pull together everybody in a common agenda for access to justice. And that word has kept coming up, those 3 words are coming up. They're not uncontroversial. What does access, is access a limiter or an expander? There's a wonderful headline from a Canadian academic in a piece he wrote, before access to justice, there was, and this follows on from something Helena was saying, there was just justice. So what we actually want is justice, in a way, sod the access. So there are some careful issues here, and what's more, there are issues which really need to be thought out very carefully, and where a combination of people imbued with constitutional discourse, familiar with talking about rights, coming from a non-legal world, with lawyers, I think there's a real opening. And by God, there's a real need. And I think there is a bit more. I was intensely depressed by the LASBO debate because there was no purchase. It was about money. You couldn't argue with the government in relation to it unless you went into a macroeconomic argument about no cuts. But there is, as we move forward, an argument about access to justice. It can be put in human rights terms, it can be put in constitutional terms, and I look forward to openJustice as being a fresh and a new voice in an old debate. Thank you.